Tony Blair reveals desperate elitist plot to stop Brexit with second referendum. The former Prime Minister and arch-Remainer has published a 32-page document titled Brexit, What We Now Know, which claims Brexit has already damaged Britain's economy by hitting productivity, increasing food prices and deterring investment. The document could be the beginnings of an orchestrated campaign by the former Premier and other leading Remain politicians to secure a second referendum as the Brexit exit date on March 29, 2019 approaches. But, Mr. Blair's assertions were contested yesterday during an interview with BBC Radio 4 presenter John Humphrys, in which he was accused of being tendentious, elitist and undemocratic. The former MP for Sedgefield claimed democracy doesn't just stop on one day and he should continue with the democratic debate. Mr. Humphrys said, "If you don't like the result of the referendum, you have another one?" Mr. Blair replied, "The common-sense approach would be to say if the circumstances change and we decide on reflection that that new relationship does not offer us a better way forward for the future of the country, why shouldn't we be entitled to think again?" The former Labour leader was accused of conflating two things after claiming there are significant staff shortages in the NHS after the Brexit vote. But, official figures suggest the number of EU nationals working within the health service has increased by 5.4 years since the referendum. Mr. Humphrys also challenged Mr. Blair over his claim that Brexit is damaging the UK's productivity. The BBC4 presenter said productivity has been a consistent issue in the UK since Mr. Blair's time in office. Mr. Blair was even warned of civil disobedience breaking out as a result of his plan to hold a second referendum or a special election. Former Conservative Chancellor and prominent Brexiteer Lord Lamont said Mr. Blair was starting Project Fear Mark 2 and was delusional, as several of the document's key assertions as contradicting. Senior Labour MPs described Mr. Blair's intervention as utterly unhelpful and said voters who voted Brexit will think it is the metropolitan elite ignoring them. Tony Blair stood on a manifesto of withdrawing from the European Economic Community when he first became an MP in 1983. The pamphlet said Labour would negotiate a withdrawal from the EEC, which would become the European Union. Mr. Blair said Brussels had drained our natural resources and destroyed jobs. Labour's official policy in the 1983 election was to leave the EEC, and it was written into the manifesto dubbed the longest suicide note in history by Gerald Kaufman. This was also the same election in which Jeremy Corbyn was elected.